The massive alien vessel emerged from slipspace directly over the United Nations headquarters, its shadow falling across Manhattan like an eclipse. Air raid sirens wailed as fighter jets scrambled, useless against a ship that defied physics. Earth held its collective breath, expecting the end. Instead, a single message broadcast worldwide, translated into every major language simultaneously. "We come seeking warriors." Commander Elena Rodriguez watched the recording for the 5th time in her office at Camp Pendleton, still processing the reality that humanity wasn't alone, and that apparently we were being recruited. "Why us?" she asked the coalition representative, an 8-foot-tall reptilian diplomat whose name translated roughly as "swift current through narrow passage." "Your species possesses unique attributes," Swift Current replied, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "The Vrox horde advances. 17 spacefaring civilizations have formed the coalition to stop them. Each contributes according to their strengths. And humanity's strength is..." The alien's multifaceted eyes blinked in sequence. "That remains to be determined. But your entertainment broadcasts suggest promising combat potential." 3 weeks later, Elena stood at attention before the Joint Chiefs as they delivered her orders. First Contact had evolved into a military exchange program, with Earth contributing a company of Marines to serve alongside alien counterparts in the Coalition's elite combat units. "We're sending you in first, Commander," General Hammond said, sliding a tablet toward her. "One company, best of the best. Determine our place in this coalition and whether it's in Earth's interest to commit further forces." Elena scanned the personnel files. "Sir, these aren't conventional Marines. You've given me Force Recon, SEALs, Rangers, Delta." "Correct. If aliens want human warriors, they're getting our finest." Hammond's expression hardened. "Find out what they really want from us, Commander. And remember, you're carrying the flag for the entire human race." The Coalition transport made the journey to Station Apex in mere days, a trip that should have taken centuries. Elena's Marines tried to maintain military discipline despite the wonder of FTL travel and the menagerie of alien species they encountered aboard. Stepping off the shuttle onto the station's docking bay, Elena fought to keep her expression neutral. Creatures that defied imagination moved with purpose through the cavernous space. Towering insectoids with chitinous armor, floating. Gas sacks with tentacles that manipulated tools with surprising dexterity. Serpentine beings that slithered along walls and ceilings. "Stay tight," she murmured to her Marines. "Remember your training." A contingent approached, clearly military from their uniform aesthetic despite the wildly different physiologies. At their head, a massive 4-armed warrior with overlapping armor plates and mandibles that clicked aggressively. Elena stepped forward to offer the diplomatic greeting they'd been taught. Before she could speak, the alien warrior deliberately bumped into her, nearly sending her sprawling. Only years of combat training kept her on her feet. "I smell fear," the alien rumbled, its translator rendering the words in harsh mechanical English. "Captain Zargak, Krell 1st Combat Division. Your species lacks natural weapons, secondary limbs, even basic exoskeletons." He gestured to Elena's Marines with a dismissive sweep of his lower arms. "Perhaps the Coalition scouts mistook your entertainment broadcasts for reality." His entourage, a mix of multi-limbed, armored, and clawed alien Marines, erupted in their species' versions of laughter, a cacophony of clicks, hisses, and subsonic rumbles. Elena squared her shoulders, ignoring the voice in her head screaming about the foolishness of antagonizing a creature that could tear her apart. "Perhaps you could demonstrate these superior abilities, unless you're all armor and no action." The mess hall fell silent as Zargak loomed over her, mandibles spread to reveal multiple rows of serrated teeth. All 4 of his massive arms tensed, claws extending. "Your first assessment is tomorrow, human," he said, voice dripping with contempt. "I suggest you prepare your surrender speech. The Coalition has no use for prey species playing at being predators." The assessment chamber resembled a massive arena, with tiered observation platforms filled with alien officers and scientists. Elena led her Marines through the entrance, trying to ignore the clinical scrutiny from hundreds of compound eyes, optical sensors, and sensory appendages. Combat proficiency evaluation will proceed according to Coalition standard protocols, announced an AI voice echoing through the chamber. Assessment metrics calibrated for new species integration. Elena scanned the room. Holographic projectors, gravity manipulators, and various testing apparatus filled the space. In the observers gallery, she spotted Zargak and his Krell warriors, mandibles clicking in apparent amusement. Begin with strength assessment, the AI announced. A Krell warrior stepped forward, approached a weight mechanism, and casually lifted what Elena estimated to be equivalent to a small automobile. The alien observers chittered appreciatively. Staff Sergeant Mendez, Elena's strongest Marine, approached next. Despite his impressive physique, he struggled to lift half what the Krell had managed, muscles straining and face reddening with effort. The gallery erupted with hisses and clicks that needed no translation. Derision. Reflex assessment, came the next command. An insectoid Thrix blurred through a holographic obstacle course, its compound eyes processing threats before they fully materialized. The Marine who followed performed competently, but his reaction time registered visibly slower on the massive scoreboards. Test after test, the humans performed adequately but unexceptionally. Not humiliatingly poor, but nothing to impress the alien observers. Elena could feel morale dampening among her troops as the scoreboard consistently ranked them below median for Coalition combat species. Then came the endurance test. Standard Coalition combat stamina protocol, the AI announced. 5 minutes of maximum exertion, followed by recovery assessment. Elena watched as various alien warriors completed the challenge efficiently, sprinting, lifting, and fighting with holographic opponents for precisely 5 minutes before stepping aside for medical evaluation. The tests matched what she'd observed of their combat doctrine: overwhelming force applied in short, devastating bursts. When her Marine's turn came, Elena stepped forward. "This isn't how we train," she said, addressing the evaluation officer, a serpentine alien with gleaming scales. "May I demonstrate an alternative protocol?" From the gallery, Zargak's voice boomed. "Demonstrate your inferiority, by all means." Elena nodded to Lieutenant Park, who transmitted Earth's basic training data from her tablet. The assessment. AI processed the information, then announced, "Warning. Parameters exceed safety thresholds for all Coalition species. Not for humans," Elena replied firmly. She signaled her Marines, who began a modified version of standard Earth military physical training. What followed stunned the gallery into silence. Humans running for hours carrying heavy packs, performing thousands of repetitive strength exercises without breaks, continuing through simulated adverse conditions. After the second hour, medical officers rushed forward, scanning the humans with handheld devices. "Impossible," muttered one translator-equipped medic, a gelatinous being with multiple eye stalks. "They should be experiencing cellular breakdown and systemic failure." "This is merely our introductory training," Elena explained, continuing her exercises. "On Earth, we call this Monday." As she completed her 50th pull-up in sequence, Elena locked eyes with Zargak in the observation gallery. The Krell commander's mandibles hung slack, his typical aggressive posture replaced with something new: confusion. "The weak portion of your assessment," Elena called out, dropping to begin push-ups, "is that it never tests how long someone can keep fighting after they think they've reached their limit." She nodded to her Marines, who increased their pace, despite hours of exertion. "On Earth, we don't train to reach our limits," she continued, sweat streaming down her face. "We train to discover they don't exist." 1 week, Zargak announced, his massive form dominating the Coalition command briefing room. All 4 of his arms were crossed defensively across his armored chest. 1 week to prove whether humans deserve a place among real warriors. Elena stood at parade rest before the assembled Coalition brass, a dizzying array of species representing the military leadership of 17 spacefaring civilizations. The assessment results had caused more controversy than she'd anticipated. The integration protocols do not typically include competitive elements, noted Admiral Vexus. a floating gas sack being with tendrils that manipulated holographic controls. We assess. We assign roles based on capabilities. The humans demonstrated unexpected attributes, Zargak countered. I propose a practical evaluation. 7 days of integrated training, alternating between coalition and human methods. The Admiral's tendrils rippled, their equivalent of a thoughtful nod. Approved. Begin tomorrow. Day 1 belonged to the Krell, combat in high-gravity environments. Elena and her Marines struggled through exercises in a chamber set to 3 times Earth's gravity. The Krell moved with surprising grace despite their bulk. Their multi-jointed limbs and reinforced musculature clearly evolved for such conditions. Gravity is the great equalizer, Zargak observed as humans stumbled and gasped for breath. It cares nothing for your endurance when your bones and muscles cannot support your weight. By day's end, Elena's Marines left bruised and defeated, barely able to stand. Mendez, their strongest, had dislocated a shoulder. In the medical bay, Elena caught Zargak watching them with what could only be described as smug satisfaction. Day 2. Thrix sensory overload training. The insectoids navigated a chamber of blinding lights, deafening sounds, and disorienting gravitational shifts, their specialized sensory organs filtering the chaos efficiently. Sensory prioritization is fundamental to combat awareness, explained the Thrix commander, antennae twitching. Those who cannot manage information flow die first. The humans struggled valiantly but emerged hours later with migraines, nosebleeds, and vertigo. Lieutenant Park vomited continuously for 20 minutes after the exercise. By day 3, the alien Marines swaggered with confidence as they assembled on the training field. Several made betting gestures, clearly wagering on how quickly the humans would surrender. Elena arrived carrying what appeared to be primitive cloth and metal frames. Today, she said simply, we ruck. The alien Marines glanced at one another, in confusion as translator implants sought equivalents. Elena's team distributed rucksacks weighted to 50% of each species' body weight, adjusting straps to accommodate wildly different physiologies. The course is 40 miles, Elena explained. We move as a unit, no one stops until the end. 40 miles is trivial, scoffed a Thrix warrior, its exoskeleton gleaming. Our scouts cover such distances in hours. Elena smiled thinly. Then this should be easy. It wasn't. 20 miles in, alien Marines began collapsing one by one. The mighty Krell with their inefficient multi-limbed gait overheated catastrophically. Their massive bodies, perfect for bursts of overwhelming strength, proved disastrous for sustained exertion. Cooling systems built into their armor failed under continuous stress. The Thrix fared no better. Their exoskeletons, ideal for rapid movement, chafed painfully at joint articulations when forced to maintain a steady pace for hours. Several developed stress fractures in their load-bearing limbs. At mile 30, only humans remained standing. They backtracked to help fallen aliens to medical tents, setting up IVs for the severely dehydrated Krell. Elena found Zargak receiving emergency cooling treatment, his armored skin hot enough to blister human fingers. She knelt beside the fallen warrior. This isn't even our final test, she said quietly. On Earth, we do this for 5 days straight with minimal sleep. We call it embracing the suck. The Krell captain stared at her through pain-clouded eyes. Why would any species torture themselves this way? Because battlefields don't care about your limits, Elena answered, helping the medics apply cooling packs. And neither does death. Fascinating, chirped Dr. Zeal, the coalition's lead xenobiologist. Her mandibles clicked with excitement as she manipulated the holographic display showing comparative physiological scans. Simply fascinating. The briefing room was packed with military officials from both human and alien contingents. Elena sat beside a still-recovering Zargak, whose cooling packs had been reduced but not eliminated. The Krell commander's posture was noticeably less aggressive than before the ruck march. Most coalition species evolved as ambush predators or specialized hunters, Dr. Zeal explained, highlighting the Krell's massive muscle groups, dense bone structure, and multiple limbs. Their biology optimizes for overwhelming force applied in minimal time. The display shifted to show the neural transmission speed of the Thrix, their specialized sensory organs pulsing with electrical activity. Similarly, perception-oriented species like the Thrix evolved to process massive sensory input instantly and react with precision, perfect for avoiding predators or making single decisive strikes. Elena watched as Admiral Vexus and other Coalition officers nodded in agreement with the familiar evolutionary theory. Then Dr. Zeal switched to the human scans. Humans, however, she continued, mandibles spread in what Elena had come to recognize as the Thrix equivalent of a smile, evolved as persistence hunters. Their ancestors literally chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The display highlighted human respiratory, cardiovascular, and thermoregulatory systems. But the truly remarkable adaptation isn't physical at all. It's psychological. Elena shifted uncomfortably as her own medical readouts from the training exercises appeared alongside those of other Marines. The room grew quieter. These red markers indicate when biological shutdown should occur, Dr. Zeal continued, indicating threshold lines on the graphs. Note how Coalition species uniformly collapse at their markers. Their bodies have hard-coded limits preventing self-destruction. She highlighted the human readouts, where red markers appeared early in the exercise data, but activity continued for hours afterward. Humans developed cultural overrides for biological limits. They've weaponized something we specifically evolved to prevent: the willingness to endure self-damage for future gain. The display showed microscopic tissue damage from Elena's muscles, slowly repairing between training sessions. They deliberately induce micro-trauma to build stronger systems. Zargak studied the human Marines with new intensity. You're saying their strength is choosing to suffer? Precisely, Dr. Zeal exclaimed, eye facets glittering with scientific excitement. They've culturally evolved what we consider a neurological impossibility: voluntary override of pain avoidance instincts. A Krell military scientist rose, his cooling vest humming. Could we reproduce this adaptation in our own species? Unknown, replied Dr. Zeal. It appears to be both biological and cultural. Humans evolved without significant natural weapons or defenses, forcing them to develop this remarkable pain negotiation system. As I understand it, added Ambassador Swift Current, human entertainment and religious practices often involve deliberately chosen suffering. Their mythologies celebrate those who endure pain for greater purpose. Coalition commanders muttered amongst themselves. One stepped forward, a species Elena hadn't encountered before, with crystalline growths for limbs. If we could somehow combine the specialized combat capabilities of our forces with this human endurance philosophy. There's a term for that on Earth, Elena interjected, seeing her opening. We call it force multiplication. She stood, addressing the room directly. Your species are natural weapons, specialized and lethal. Humans had to build ourselves into weapons through suffering and adaptation. We don't just endure pain, we use it as a teacher. Elena met Zargak's four-eyed gaze. In human military tradition, we have a saying: the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in combat. The Krell commander's mandibles clicked softly in what Elena now recognized as thoughtful consideration rather than derision. Perhaps, he rumbled, there is something to learn from prey species after all. Again, Elena shouted as Zargak collapsed onto the training mat, all forearms trembling uncontrollably. Your enemy won't give you rest periods. 3 weeks into the integration program, and the formerly imposing Krell commander sweated profusely through specialized cooling garments designed by Coalition engineers. The once pristine training facility now hummed with activity as mixed species squads worked through modified exercise regimens. I cannot, Zargak began, mandibles quivering with exhaustion. Can't is just can with an excuse attached, Elena cut him off, kneeling beside the massive alien. The fact that she could interrupt a Krell without fear of dismemberment marked a significant shift in their relationship. Find your second wind. Explain this con second wind, Zargak gasped. The moment when your body accepts that you won't stop and begins to adapt, Elena replied, offering a hydration pack. Pain is just information. You can acknowledge it without obeying it. Across the chamber, human Marines struggled through alien combat forms that required inhuman flexibility and reaction speeds. Lieutenant Park worked with a Thrix instructor, her movements becoming increasingly fluid as she attempted to replicate their lightning-fast strike patterns. Modified exoskeletons helped bridge biological gaps, but the learning curve remained steep. Staff Sergeant Mendez cursed colorfully as he failed again to maintain proper form in the Krell heavy-gravity fighting stance, his reinforced limb braces whining with the strain. "Adapt and overcome," Elena called to him. "Mind over matter." "Easy for you to say, Commander," Mendez grunted. "You're not the one trying to make 2 arms do the job of 4. Later, in tactical simulations, the integrated squads began showing promise. Krell warriors provided overwhelming force for breaching operations while humans maintained security during extended missions. Thrix scouts with their superior senses paired with human endurance specialists for long-range reconnaissance. Coalition commanders observed with growing interest as hybrid tactics emerged organically through trial and error. Admiral Vexus himself attended the graduation exercise, where mixed-species fire teams would demonstrate their new capabilities in a complex combat simulation. The exercise began smoothly. Elena led a strike team including Zargak and 2 Thrix Marines through a series of increasingly difficult obstacles. The new combination proved devastatingly effective, Krell strength, Thrix perception, and human endurance complementing each other perfectly. Then disaster struck. A power surge destabilized the environmental systems, causing a structural collapse that trapped Zargak's team in a rapidly heating chamber. Emergency systems calculated 4 hours until physical rescue, far beyond the heat tolerance of Krell. "Physiology. There's a manual override," the technician explained, manipulating holographic controls desperately. "But it's through 3 superheated chambers. No coalition species could survive the passage." Elena stepped forward, already removing her cooling equipment. "What's the route?" "Commander, your skin will literally melt," the Thrix medical officer protested, antennae flattening in alarm. "The temperatures exceed human survival thresholds by 40%. "Fortunately," she replied as her Marines helped her into specialized heat gear, "humans have been setting themselves on fire for fun and religious purposes for millennia. We call it taking one for the team." Mendez and Park moved to join her, but Elena shook her head. "I need you coordinating the rescue from this end. This is a 1-person mission." As she prepared to enter the first chamber, Zargak's voice came through the emergency comm system, weakened by heat stress but still recognizable. "Elena, this is suicide by Coalition standards." "Good thing I'm human then," she replied, stepping into heat that immediately blistered exposed skin. "Besides, I've been through worse." "Ever been to Death Valley in August?" The Coalition engineers watched in horrified fascination as Elena's vital signs spiked dangerously while she navigated the superheated sections, manually overriding safety systems as she went. When they extracted Zargak's team an hour later, the Krell commander's first coherent words were, "How are you still alive?" Elena, skin blistered and uniform partially fused to her body, managed a pained smile as medics rushed to treat her burns. Rage, spite, and something your species needs to learn called stubborn. Red emergency lights pulsed rhythmically as the Coalition battlecruiser Indomitable Will dropped out of slipspace, its massive engines throttling down with a subsonic rumble that Elena felt in her bones. Her newly healed skin still felt tight and sensitive under her combat uniform as she strode onto the bridge. Admiral Vextor's crystalline limbs manipulated holographic controls, bringing up tactical displays showing Outpost Sigma, a crucial Coalition supply depot under siege by Varrock's forces. The 3-dimensional representation showed enemy positions in pulsing red, surrounding the blue glow of Coalition defenses. "Intelligence confirms the Varrocks have altered their tactics," the Admiral explained, voice like grinding glass. "Previously, they relied on overwhelming initial assaults followed by consolidation periods. Now they're employing prolonged siege warfare. Elena studied the hologram, noting the enemy's distributed positions and supply lines. They're adapting to target coalition weaknesses in sustained operations. Precisely why your integrated unit will spearhead the relief force, the Admiral replied, crystalline appendages shifting to highlight a landing zone. Your mission: break the siege perimeter, establish a corridor, and reinforce the defenders until our main fleet arrives in 72 hours. Lieutenant Park manipulated her tactical tablet, uploading the mission parameters. 3 days of continuous combat operations, exactly what we've been training for. The dropships took heavy fire on approach, anti-aircraft plasma bursts illuminating the cabin in eerie purple flashes. Inside the lead ship, Elena checked her equipment while Zargak, now her executive officer, reviewed final tactical plans with their mixed-species platoon. "Remember your training?" he rumbled to the nervous aliens, his once mocking tone replaced with earned authority. "When you think you're done, you're only at 40%. Elena caught his four-eyed gaze and nodded approvingly. The Krell commander had embraced human endurance philosophy with surprising dedication. The landing zone erupted in chaos as specialized coalition units created the initial breach. Krell shock troops smashing Vrok's defensive lines with overwhelming strength while Thrick snipers eliminated enemy heavy weapons with uncanny precision. For 6 hours, the plan worked perfectly. The integrated unit carved a corridor through enemy lines to the outpost, enabling supply delivery and medical evacuation of the wounded. Then the Vroks countered with wave after wave of attackers. By hour 8, coalition species began showing fatigue. A Thrick scout missed an approaching enemy, nearly resulting in a flanking maneuver that would have been disastrous if not for Staff Sergeant Mendez's intervention. By hour 12, even with combat stimulants and medical intervention, alien Marines collapsed from exhaustion. Reaction times slowed dangerously. Mistakes multiplied. Elena implemented the contingency plan. Human Marines rotated to frontline positions in shifts, maintaining combat effectiveness through sleep rotation and what they called combat naps. The concept of maintaining continuous operations through team shifts, standard procedure for humans, amazed coalition commanders observing from orbit. 20-minute sleep cycles, Elena explained to a bewildered Thrix lieutenant as she woke from her own brief nap. Better than nothing. Your turn. The insectoid warrior clicked uncertainly but followed the procedure, dropping instantly into recovery sleep. When reinforcements finally arrived 72 hours later, they found human Marines still holding defensive positions while medical teams treated exhausted alien allies. The outpost remained secure. The mission accomplished. In the command debrief aboard the Indomitable Will, intelligence officers revealed data recovered from captured Vroks. Command nodes. They've been studying human physiology, the analyst reported, a floating sphere with sensory tendrils. They're attempting to genetically modify their troops to match human endurance capabilities. Elena exchanged glances with Zargak. "Tell me about these modifications," she said quietly. "They've altered their biology," the analyst explained, projecting stolen Vrok's research data. Enhanced musculature, improved thermoregulation, optimized metabolic efficiency. But there's no evidence they understand the psychological component, added Dr. Zeal, who had joined the operation as scientific observer. "Good," Elena replied, examining the Vrok's biological data. "Because you can't engineer what we've spent. 200,000 years evolving. The ability to keep fighting when every cell in your body is screaming to stop." Zargak clicked his mandibles in the Krell equivalent of a wry smile. "They've copied the hardware but not the software." Admiral Vextor's crystalline form shifted with decision. "This intelligence changes our strategic position. If the Vroks are adapting specifically to counter human capabilities, then we need more humans," Elena finished. "And more importantly, we need to teach your species how to think like humans." "Welcome to Hell Week," barked the human drill instructor, voice carrying across the New Mexico desert without amplification. "By the end of today, half of you will quit. By the end of the week, another 40%. Before him stood the most diverse assembly of sentient beings ever gathered on Earth. 35 alien Marines representing 17 species of the Coalition. Behind them loomed the obstacle course known as the Destroyer, its imposing structures baking under the merciless sun. I'm not here to teach you combat. I'm here to teach you that your limitations are mostly in your head. In orbit above Earth, the Coalition vessel, Resilient Doctrine, maintained station. Its medical bay transformed into a xenophysiology research center. The most ambitious cross-species training initiative in Coalition history had begun, with Earth at its center. Across the planet, alien Marines endured variants of human military training, from Marine Corps boot camp to Army Ranger School to Navy SEAL Bud-S training. Meanwhile, in specialized facilities, human Marines received instruction in alien combat forms and technologies previously deemed too complex for primitive species. The dropout rate was astronomical. Alien physiology simply wasn't designed for human training methods. A Thrix collapsed from heat exhaustion 2 hours into desert survival training, its exoskeleton unable to regulate temperature efficiently. 3 Krell warriors suffered joint dislocations attempting human flexibility exercises their anatomy couldn't accommodate. Medical teams worked overtime developing species-specific supplements and recovery protocols. Coalition biotechnologists collaborated with human doctors to create adaptive training regimens that pushed boundaries without causing permanent harm. Major Elena Rodriguez, newly promoted, divided her time between training oversight and curriculum development at the Coalition War College established in Colorado. In her office overlooking snow-capped mountains, she reviewed progress reports with growing satisfaction. "Look at this," she told Zargak, now her permanent liaison officer. Thrix Squad 6 completed a 30-mile forced march despite having exoskeletons designed for short sprints. The Krell commander studied the data, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. And here, a Marine from the aquatic Nexu species endured 3 days in desert conditions by consciously slowing metabolism and conserving water. "They're adapting," Elena said. "Not just physically, but mentally. They're learning to override their biological defaults." "At great cost," Zargak noted, gesturing to the medical reports. "We're losing almost 80% to washout or injury. Still, better numbers than I expected," Elena replied. "The 20% who make it through will transform your forces." The program came to be known as the Terran Method, psychological resilience training adapted for 17 different physiologies. What began as mockery had evolved into the Coalition's most coveted qualification, with those who survived the training earning unique insignia recognizing their achievement. On graduation day 6 months later, Earth hosted Coalition dignitaries for the ceremony, honoring the first class of graduates. Only 7 aliens had completed the full human combat qualification course, a testament to its difficulty. Zargak stood before the assembled crowd bearing scars from multiple training injuries. His once gleaming armor now showed battle damage and repair marks. His posture remained proud but had lost its arrogance. Before meeting humans, he addressed the crowd, voice carrying across the parade ground. "I believed strength came from natural gifts, the limbs and armor we're born with. I was wrong." He knelt before Elena in the Krell gesture of highest respect, raising his scarred arms toward her. A murmur ran through the crowd at this unprecedented display from a species known for their pride. "True strength," he continued, "comes from what you build in here." He tapped his armored chest where the Krell heart lies. "Humans were born weak so they could teach themselves to be strong. It is the greatest evolutionary adaptation I have ever witnessed." As he rose, Elena clasped his massive forearm in the warrior's grip she had once been too intimidated to offer. "The Vrox engineered themselves to match human bodies," Zargak rumbled for her ears alone. "They cannot imagine what we're building here." Elena nodded, watching the graduates, human and alien alike, standing tall despite their exhaustion. "They copied our hardware," she agreed, "but they'll never replicate our software." Rain hammered the fortified perimeter of Manufacturing Hub Epsilon 9, metallic droplets pattering against composite barriers like liquid artillery. Colonel Elena Rodriguez watched the distant lightning illuminate the horizon, where coalition dropships evacuated the last civilian personnel. The massive industrial complex, responsible for producing 30% of the coalition's advanced weaponry, stretched behind her, too valuable to surrender, too extensive to fully defend. Strategic projections scrolled across her tactical display. The largest Virox assault force ever recorded approached, 300 vessels carrying an estimated 50,000 combat troops. Intelligence suggested this wasn't merely a raid, but a decisive push to cripple coalition manufacturing capacity. They're testing their modifications here, Elena told the assembled commanders of her battalion-strength integrated unit. The room contained a mix of humans and aliens, all veterans of the Terran Method training program. They believe they've engineered endurance into their forces. Zargak, now her second-in-command, rumbled agreement. Intelligence confirms they've altered their biology to mimic human stamina capabilities, enhanced musculature, improved thermal regulation, optimized metabolic efficiency. Elena studied the faces around her. 17 species united by shared hardship and training. Then we teach them the difference between biological endurance and what humans call embracing the suck. The Vrox hit like a tsunami on day one and kept coming. Their new troops indeed showed improved stamina, fighting efficiently long after traditional Virox would withdraw to recover. The coalition defenders fell back to secondary positions, trading space for time in a carefully orchestrated retreat. Day 5. With coalition reinforcements still a week away, the defenders settled into the rhythm of continuous combat operations. Human-designed rotation schedules kept fresh troops on the line despite mounting casualties. The Terran Method graduates, both human and alien, demonstrated their training's value, maintaining combat effectiveness long after standard coalition forces would have collapsed. On Day 7, when Vrox commanders expected coalition forces to finally break from exhaustion, Elena sprung her trap, a counterattack led by troops held in strategic reserve, catching the enemy in a moment of transition. Now we find out if they truly understand endurance, she told Zargak as they prepared to lead the crucial push. The Krell commander adjusted his weapon systems, all four arms moving with practiced efficiency. They understand the physical component. They do not understand that true endurance comes from here. He tapped his chest plate. Zargak's Krell Shock Battalion, trained in human endurance methods, punched through enemy lines on the 10th day of continuous fighting and held the breach. Despite overwhelming counterattacks, what would have been physically impossible for traditional Krell became achievable through psychological techniques learned from humans. When coalition reinforcements finally arrived on Day 14, they found the defenders bloodied but unbowed. The Virox offensive, their strategic gamble on manufactured endurance, broke against the human-alien hybrid fighting doctrine. In the aftermath, as wounded from all species recovered together in the medical facilities, Coalition High Command made a historic decision. Earth would host the new Coalition Military Academy, with human and alien instructors training the next generation of integrated forces. 3 months later, in the Nevada desert, a group of new recruits representing 15 different species stood nervously at attention as their instructor approached. The morning sun glinted off Colonel Elena Rodriguez's insignia as she paced before them, her combat-scarred face impassive. "Welcome to Day 1, she announced, voice carrying across the training field. "My name is irrelevant. My species is irrelevant. From this moment, you are no longer Krell, human, Thrix, or any other species. You are Coalition Marines." Behind her, Combat Master Zargak grinned with all 4 rows of teeth, the sunrise reflecting off the human-style insignia on his armor. "Today," he rumbled, "we begin with a little Earth tradition called a 20-mile ruck march. By sunset, you will hate us. By graduation, you will thank us." He leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper that carried across the desert. The Vrox engineered their biology to match human endurance, but they missed the most important lesson humans taught us. The body breaks, the mind adapts, the spirit endures. Elena nodded to the drill instructors. "Begin Phase 1. As the recruits shouldered their packs and moved out, a Thrix cadet chittered, nervously to a human beside her. Is it true humans enjoy this suffering? Elena overheard and smiled. Enjoy? No, but something better. We thrive on it, and soon, so will you.